And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with the one and only Ron Bockstahler. Ron, welcome to my podcast.
Oh, Michael, thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. This is a special treat for me. Ron is a number one international best-selling author of his book Balancing Business and Life. Or no, the book title is Don't Lose Your Balance, because we're talking about balancing business and life. So the
Yes.
number one international best-selling author of Don't Lose Your Balance. He's a client of Paperback Expert, a great man all around. And I wanted you, Ron, to be on my show because of the topic of your book, really, in how can we balance business and life as we're building these things, because so many times the pendulum swings way too far to one end. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But take a minute, Ron. Tell us how in the world, what do you do today? How did you get there doing what you're doing? And then from there, we're going to dive into this whole topic. Okay. So how'd
Yeah.
you get to where you are?
Boy, I would say luck, but that wouldn't go over well. The truth is it's all intentional. When you look at your balanced life, it's got to be very intentional of what you're trying to do. So I
Mm,
started, coming out of the Marine Corps, then out of college, and then into a sales career, very successful in business, ran an outsourcing firm, had about 2,500 employees, and realized I could never have children at this pace, which is why I started
mm.
my own company. So when I started my own company, the whole goal were to have children and actually spend time with them.
Wow.
Very intentional of what I was trying to do. I know a lot of people, they start their business because they want to make a gazillion dollars and, have freedom. And those are all great things, but it wasn't my focus. My focus was creating a family.
Yeah, I love that. Because I think so many times, and we'll dive into this, in balancing, we want the financial success and the time freedom so that we can then maybe spend time with our family. And you've just kind of flipped it around and said, no, I'm doing this. And presumably, if the other things come, that's great, which they did. But the priority was family. And I love the word you used, intentional. Um, I think that's a word that we need to use more these days.
So, it's funny. I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago, and we were talking about manifesting things. You dream of something. Like, what do you do when you're having a hard time? You lay down in bed at night, and maybe you go back to that dream of, for me, it was playing basketball as a kid. So I was always just picture myself making a shot, dribbling, doing whatever it was I was going to do. And then I'd go out and actually manifest what I was doing. So nothing changes as you get older. If you want to do something in life, manifest it in your head, start to believe it, and do the things you need to do to accomplish it.
Yeah, I love that, because that last part is what most people leave off. Do the things you need to do. They think they can just sit there and manifest and think. And it's like, well, yeah, Think and Grow Rich had a lot about application in it, but a book wouldn't sell if it said, do these things and get rich. That just wouldn't sell as many. So let's talk about your book. Don't lose your balance. Talk to us about the heart behind that, and the struggle that entrepreneurs have in trying to build a business and have a family.
So you running a business, you get caught up in running that business, right? You gotta every day it's like, look, I've got to get this done and then I'll be able to go play baseball with my son. But then
Right.
there's always that next thing. And then you're just putting off those things because, playing baseball with your son, maybe it's important, but at the moment it's not as important as closing that deal or fulfilling an order or whatever you have to do to get your cash flow in for your business. So it's like that snowball going down the hill and you're running and it's catching up and eventually it's going to catch you and you're just rolling with it. You can't stop it. And
Right.
that's what entrepreneurs get caught up in all too often. You got to slow
Yeah.
down. You got to step back and say, okay, why am I here and what am I doing this? One of the things that, and the reason I wrote the book is my business caters to law firms. So attorneys, they're always busy. They're always go, 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 go. But generally, they're just unorganized and they really haven't prioritized what their life should be, which is why they're get caught up in the snowball going down the hill. And that
Yeah.
becomes the big problem. And it's really hard to get out of it. Next thing you know, 20 years passes by
Right.
and you're like, what happened?
Well, and maybe you can speak into this. I think they get in many times, attorneys specifically, but I work with attorneys and financial advisors, and they're all in that same rat race. They go to their conferences, high achiever conferences or whatever, and everybody's wearing that badge, right? I worked 80 hours a week. And it's like, that's a race I don't want to be in.
Right.
But is that part of the deal? Is keeping up with the Joneses per se?
It is. And you go out and they talk about it, and then that compounds it like, oh, I'm going to do that. Or it's okay to do that. No, it's
Yes.
not. It's not okay to do that. You
It's,
need to have family time. You need to have personal time.
yeah.
Plan those things out. If you're putting in 80, 120 hours at your job, it's too much.
Yeah.
Find a different job or
Absolutely.
change what you're doing.
Yeah. It's interesting. So last year I was in strategic coach, and first meeting right out of the gate. You're familiar with strategic coach Dan Sullivan and all of that.
Yes.
First meeting right out of the gate. Okay, we're going to calendar your year. You're going to take off 120 days off the calendar right now, and that includes weekends and things. But I ended up last year, I was off every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No work at all, called free days. And because they pivot your whole mind, they say, okay, now you got fewer days to be productive and you're more productive. Then they go into organization strategies for entrepreneurs. And just those one or two little concepts pivoted so much in our lives to go, yeah, if I'm working that much, I am not doing something. I've worked, Ron, for years. I've been in business for a long time. And even before I was in business, I was in ministry and stuff. But I've always had the philosophy and the belief and the action. I never work more than 40 hours a week. And my philosophy is if I am working more than 40 hours a week, I am doing something wrong. I don't have the team. I don't have the systems. I'm not doing something because my family is really important to me. And evenings and weekends, that's where I am. And people look at me sometimes and go, oh, well, and it's like, I don't care what you think. So, but that's because I try to live a balanced life. And sometimes it gets out of kilter because you're in a growth season or whatever. That's okay. But let's talk about what are some things that you found, some really practical things, because you and I both know we've got listeners who are attorneys and financial advisors who are just going at it and they can't make their son's soccer game tonight because of business. What are some practical things that you have learned from your years to go, okay, here's some things that you probably should just start doing?
Well, let's talk about your business for a minute. One of the great things that I've admired and I've been able to experience from your company is processes. You
Mm,
and automation. Those two things. You have processes and automation in your business
yeah.
that are, I mean, second to none that I've experienced and I've worked with.
Wow. Thank
So
you.
we can start right there. You can be talking about these things. I mean, put a process in place, follow that process. It's duplicatable. You can train staff to do those things and you could step away.
Yeah.
So one of the things I always talk about is you need to make your business a business that you don't need to be working in. And so many
Yes.
people with their egos, they don't want to say, they don't want to admit that. They don't want to do that. They want no, they want to have their hands in it.
Yeah.
I got a controller that has this issue. She's got 4 employees, and I'm like, you can't, I don't ever want to see you do data entry again. It's
Mm-hmm.
simple. We're going to work with you, and you're going to have to let go. And for her, that's a really hard thing. But once you can learn to let go, hire the right people, trust them to do their job. Because I always say, look, I hire people that are better than me at what they do. So all I got to do is
100%.
get out of their way
100%.
and let them run, and my
Yeah.
business will do great. It's funny. Go back to, so we had an RV. So when five kids were anywhere were 1 year to 6 years old, we went and got an RV and we decided we're going to go to all 50 states over an 8 year period. So we spent 22 months in that RV over that 8 years. But the first trip was 6 weeks. And I think I lost my phone for 10 days. And by the way, I was a workaholic. So
Yeah.
before all this, I was 20 hours a day and thought life was great,
Yeah.
but lost my phone and then didn't realize it. So when I did, I was like, hey, has anyone seen my phone? And by the time I got back, my company had made more money while I was gone because I mean, a lot of great things, processes were in place, but I hired really good people.
Yeah.
And by walking away, I showed them I trusted them and they took
Wow.
ownership.
Yeah. We could do a whole podcast around hiring because I think the mentality is I am running my business. I'm the smart one. I'm going to hire lower because I'm delegating down. And I think that's probably a misconception,
Oh,
right? Because I mean, you know me. I've hired my son Caleb, who's 29 years old, who is way smarter and better than me at so many things, right? But I think it came from Ron. I learned a number of years ago. I'm only good at four things in life. Okay, I am wicked good at these four things. But outside of those four things, I am like mediocre at best. And building systems and processes is number 7 or 8 or 9 on my list. That's why I brought my son Caleb in because that's like number 1 or 2 on his list. So,
yes.
speak into just for a few minutes or minute or two about hiring and being confident enough to hire people smarter than you, because they're not coming to take over your company. They want a great place to work.
It's a great point. They don't come in with the same maybe mentality as an entrepreneur. They don't want to be an entrepreneur. They want
Right.
to be, let's like, I could talk about my CMO, my marketing officer. He loves marketing. Well, I let him love marketing because he can bring me all those great ideas and then, okay, let's implement them. Let's put, we work within our budget. And it's amazing what he does with marketing. Now, I could never do that.
Right.
I could just go through the lists of people that I'm lucky, fortunate enough to work with that are just so talented at what they do, but they love what they do.
Yes.
And I think when you're bringing someone in, find someone that's passionate about what they're going to be doing, and they're going to be successful.
Yeah, without question. And then what that allows you to do as the entrepreneurs is have more free time, right? To find more balance. And now you're mentoring them, you're helping them understand probably not the actual job because they're probably better than you at that job, but more along the lines of culture and communication and teamwork because a lot of people who are really good at marketing or finance or something, they're missing those elements that as an entrepreneur, that's our strength. Is that fair?
Michael, that's a great point. When you're bringing in those people that are more talented than you at what they're doing, you're their coach.
Yes.
Don't be their boss. Be their coach.
So good.
You
Yeah.
bring the team together so they all work together and you kind of help facilitate that. But you're not going to tell them how to be a better marketer, you know,
God forbid.
but,
Yeah.
but communicator possibly, how to work within groups. Yes, that's what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
You do not need to be doing the marketing
Right.
or whatever else it is that they do.
Or anything else. Yeah. You're the leader. It's funny. You just took me back to 1992. I was in Christian radio sales and marketing in central Indiana. And a peer of mine was down in Indianapolis, Gary Arnold. He ran a Christian radio station down there, and he was probably 70 at the time, and I was probably 25 or 30, right? Young. And he gave me a book by John Maxwell, and it was Developing the Leader Within You. I still have it. And I read that and devoured it and learned. And then I got John's next book for me was Developing the Leaders Around You. And I really think if I go back and just hit me that those two books were probably very foundational in how I've built my life and my company because John Maxwell says he's only good at 4 or 5 things, right? Communication and leadership. And I thought, well, that's smart. I don't have to be good at everything.
Right. But there's a great point. When I talk to attorneys, which I seem to do every day, is you want to practice law. You're really, really good at that area of law you're practicing. They don't teach you anything about running a business,
Right.
or they don't teach you how to market in law school, but they shouldn't have to because you shouldn't be doing it. What you should be is find the expert that can do that for you
Yes.
and let them
Absolutely.
do it. And then you
Absolutely.
practice law. That's the one thing that's the misperception. You hear all these so often that, oh, they don't teach you all these things in law school. It's because you don't really need to know them. What you need to know is how to manage and develop people around you that can do
I
those
love it.
things.
Yeah. I love that perspective. I always and somebody else told me this. I don't remember, but it was like you want to act really like that the heart surgeon at a hospital. He stands in that operating room and everybody else, wheels the patient in and hands him all the stuff and he does heart surgery. And then when
Right.
he's done, they wheel the person out and they do that and they scrub up and the next guy comes in. And that's what he does. And that's what you're just saying to the attorneys or anybody else. Do what God's given you the gift to do and build a team around you to do everything else.
Michael, that's a great analogy. I'm going to have to borrow that from you.
Oh, absolutely. I don't even know where I heard it, but you can have it and run with it because it makes just a ton of sense.
It does. Everything should be like that. When running a business, focus on what you do, and
Yeah.
then go get people to do the things that you're not experts in.
Okay. So and stop saying, well, I can't do that, or I'm not a brain surgeon, or it doesn't work that way. So, case in point, we wrote a book a number of years ago for Phil Herman. He's Dayton, Ohio's #1 realtor, has been for 25 years. And when I was talking with Phil and things, he says, I run my office like a doctor's office. So Phil Herman does not go out to your house to look at it, to evaluate it, to estimate it, to get. He says, you come to me, and if you're a good fit for me, we'll settle the deal, and I will get your house sold. Well, don't you need to see my house? He's like, no, and he's built it into. So he's got listing offices within his office, and he'll go in for like 15 minutes Okay, Ron, great. Looking forward to helping you. Johnny here is going to finish all the paperwork. And Phil goes to the next office with a seller waiting for him right there. And when he told me that, I'm like, well, no wonder you're number one.
Right.
He's not wasting his time driving all around town. People are coming to him, which is a perception thing, number one. But he's built a system and people, and Phil knows what he's excellent at, and that's all he does. It didn't hit me until you hit right there, but it's like, yeah, everybody can model that if you have intentionality,
Right.
right?
It's intentional, right? You're creating that intentionally. If you're doing it yourself, if you're using some operating system like an EOS or a Pinnacle or whatever the operating system you are putting in, as they say, as every business has an operating system, some are more effective than others.
I love that.
Just
I love
make
that.
it intentional and put it in place so it's easily duplicatable.
Yes, yeah, and
And
it comes down to so all right. So for instance, in our company, Caleb and I are always looking in the future and growing and things. And he's a master now, and he got this phrase from I think Keith Cunningham through his book The Road Less Stupid, which was a great book. Um, Caleb's question is always, okay, Daddy, what are we solving for?
ooh, okay.
That is a question that stops me in my track every time because I can run down all kinds of roads and he's like, what are we solving for? What's and when you get clarity on the answer to that question, it clears the decks. And you
Absolutely.
realize, oh, well, I could do this, that, and the other, but this and that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So but that's because Caleb is really intentional, and we know that thinking clearly and spending time to think, which I would love your impact on that or your thoughts on that, because I think a lot of business owners don't spend enough time thinking and visualizing the future and all of that. Do you
But
find that?
here's and this was hard for me at first, but taking time to think.
Yes.
It's harder than you think, right? It's take time, get away and strategize and think through. Now I talk about, start with the end in mind. When you're
Yes.
starting your business, where do you want to go with this business?
Yeah.
What do you want it to do for you and your family? Know that before you start the business.
Absolutely.
And what's your exit strategy? And I don't think enough is talked about this. Well, I mean, enough's not talked about setting goals, planning, sitting down, thinking through what this year is going to look like, the next 3 years will look like, and then, breaking it down quarterly, monthly, weekly. What do I need to do to achieve these objectives, these
Right.
goals? And if you do that, because you'll always have something in front of you, and then that motivation, why, what are we solving for? What am I
Absolutely.
trying to do? Where do I want to go? It's so powerful. It'll change everything between your home life, your business will run successfully. Your family will be successful. You'll have a wonderful, happy life. It's not easy to do. And people don't sit around and talk about it much because
Right.
we get so caught up in just trying to survive.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that book that I talked about, The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. So I don't know if you know Keith Cunningham. He was a real estate guy and stuff. He has earned and lost more millions of dollars than you and I will ever see. Okay, he's just one of those guys. But he wrote this book, and it's his um, chapters and questions about what he calls thinking time. A 1 hour a week minimum time when you're alone with a pad of paper with one question trying to figure out the future, whether it's business or personal. And the whole book is chapter after chapter of his experiences. And then normally 10 to 20 questions that he has used over years for his thinking times that are just springboards. One of the best books I've ever read, and I've got just right around the corner here. It just sits on my table, and I have thinking time at least once a week when I'm sitting down thinking about one question. And Keith's great because he says the answers you come up with are good, but the brilliance is in finding the right question.
Yes.
And if you ask the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. So you have to, I have thinking times to come up with the right question for my next thinking time because it's just so critical. But that helps me find balance in life. And sometimes, and you know this, let's talk about that thinking time feels unproductive.
Right. Well, let's take it one step forward because thinking time is not just about your business.
Oh, right,
Where
100%.
do you see your family?
Yes.
I know a lot of super successful business people on their, multiple marriages and, estranged from
Yes.
their kids, and they're drinking because they were really successful in this one area. They focused on it, but they didn't spend any thinking time on this other area. And having a relationship, that's work.
It
You need to
is.
put some time into those relationships if they're going to be
Right.
successful. They don't
Yeah.
just happen. And too often we take advantage of those, and then they fall apart.
Yes. Absolutely. So
It's
yeah, we're recording this in early 2025. My wife and I will celebrate 35 years of marriage in April of this year. So we're planning a cruise, right? We got it booked, and I could very easily not do another thing and just show up on the cruise and be happy.
ah,
Or I could spend some thinking time going, okay, how can we together anticipate it, make sure that it's a great memory, do some fun things for what could I be doing? That takes intentionality. Thank you very much. Now I got another thing to do. No. but but it's good. That's what we need to be doing in all areas of our lives. And
yes,
when we do that, it helps bring us that balance. But I think so many entrepreneurs, especially attorneys and financial advisors, but they're probably all over the map, um, are so busy. They're scared to take an hour a week and block it out on the calendar and say, I'm going to get away. I'm going to go to a park. I'm going to get away from everything. Turn my phone off. Can you do that? Is that
oh
legal?
boy, oh boy, that's a hot button.
It is. It is. Um, so many times we did this is the first thing we look at every morning, and it shouldn't be, right? I've built my morning routine. So I get out of bed and I go out in the living room and I sit down on my chair and I pull out the Bible. And for me, I spend about 30 to 40 minutes every day just in the Bible, just thinking and praying and talking and stuff. And I try not to even look at the phone until like 9 o'clock,
It's a great
because I
practice.
know once I do, buddy, it's a black hole. And
I'll use that analogy if you're out there, talking about phones, but you're out playing baseball with your son, and you pick up your phone, you're
mm-hmm.
done. Your mind's
Yeah,
gone. You
yeah,
you might physically still be out there, but you are no longer with your son
that's right.
and whatever child it is. But don't do it. Set
Don't.
time away and don't be available to work. I'm starting to see it a little bit more now when I see out of office messages that people are just
Yes.
taking time off, or like you did, take Fridays. I don't work on Fridays.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be more productive on the other 4 days. And and as I understand it, that from time to time there's an exception depending on what's going on,
Right.
but
Yeah.
majority of the time you block out that time and you're going to be super successful. You're going to be more productive on the time that you are scheduled to be working,
Yes.
and you're going to be happy.
Absolutely.
And-
Yes, because you can take Friday. So I took some Fridays and I had lunch with my daughters because I had the freedom to go at 11 o'clock or whenever. I didn't have any appointments, and it helped me build. I went and met with people at church or whatever. It's like if somebody would say, "Hey, Michael, can you meet?" I'm like, "I can." Needs to be Friday because my Monday through Thursday are solid because I only had 4 days a week to work, right? So it
right.
gives you a different mindset to be super intentional, which means the hours that I was working actually had more output because I was more focused and I could push things to Friday. It's really a freeing thing to do.
That's I love this. I love it. Love the story. It's a great practice, and we
Yeah,
can all do it. I don't care what you do, you can do it.
absolutely. Because who has control of your calendar?
Absolutely.
It had better be you.
I mean,
And
I thought I was going to say my wife, but yes, it's me.
yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's probably the right answer, but um, yeah, it's all of that, and finding ways to find balance, because I think when we get out of balance routinely, it builds stress
Oh,
and anxiety and Garrison, probably depression, and it makes us not want to come into work.
you just hit on a really hot button. I have a health coach, and we monitor my glucose and we monitor my cholesterol. And mind you, I've done 7 Ironmans, so I'm not sitting around. I'm out there,
Right.
training on a regular basis. Um, but it was the stress that I was like, wow, so why is my glucose go up? Well, you're stressed. You need to start blocking more time out. It's like, does that really have any effect on my physical ability, being? And he said, oh, absolutely. But she was right. She was 100% right. Started changing things. The stress went down. And I mean, not changing anything major within my business or anything, but just changing my time. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be focused on, I got to focus here on other things. It opens so many things up. You feel better, you're happier, you make
Yeah.
better decisions when you're happy.
Right.
It all starts going uphill.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it is because you're intentional, but it's the sense of control. And I think when we aren't intentional and life just our calendars get full, we are out of control and we don't know how to regain it. And we think that by me taking Fridays off, that's how dare you do that? It's like, no, this is my life, right? So I think there's a sense of control that we lose, and then we get into chaos and we don't know what to do.
Well, okay, let's back up 1 second here because I've been on vacations where I couldn't get my mind off of work. And
Yes.
because I didn't have the right process, procedures, or people in
Yep.
place
Yep.
that I should have had at that point in time, that's why I could not enjoy that vacation. So once again, put the process procedures in place, bring on the right people. And you don't have, okay, I hear people say, look, I'm not that big. I can't afford a CMO. Get a fractional employee, get a fractional CMO. There are so many fractional services out there that you could tap into that save us a lot of money. They'll give you exactly what you need and they'll grow with you. They'll scale with you until you get to that point where maybe you need a full-time person. I preach this with the attorneys on paralegals and admins. Do you have enough work for a full-time paralegal? Generally, they don't. They have 10 to 18 hours a month of real paralegal work, but they want to go spend the money because their ego tells them, I've got to
Yeah.
have my own paralegal. And
Right.
so they spend the money, which what's that do? That puts more fixed expenses on their P&L. Now that puts more pressure on them to generate more revenues and that they're in the snowball. They just compounded that snowball a little bit more, but their ego told them they had to do it when they
Yeah.
could have, saved thousands of dollars by using a fractional paralegal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many benefits to fractional, paralegals, fractional CMOs, fractional the guy who introduced us, Ryan Kimler, years ago, right? He's a fractional chief financial officer. And it's like there are fractionals everywhere. And you're right, most people don't have enough business. And so what do? They hire somebody, then they keep them busy with busy work, which is
Right.
not productive. Let's not do that.
No.
Let's build your team um, fractionally so that you don't lose your balance. And I love where you started this whole thing is really what's the intent of your business? Why are you in business? Why don't you just go work for a law firm? Why don't you go do something where it's an 8 to 5 and you go home? Okay, let's talk about that. And then let's build your business to give you that. Dan Kennedy is one of my mentors from marketing from years ago. And he always said, I'm building my business to support my lifestyle. And
Love
I've
that.
always appreciated that. And it's like, okay, that's not arrogant or cocky. That is just real to go, I have one life to live. And I want to make sure it's impactful because, well, there aren't many things that at my funeral that are going to be said that are going to be generationally impactful.
Very true.
And those
And
are
no
the
one
things
died. No one's on their deathbed thinking, boy, I sure wish I would have put in a few more hours in the office.
at all.
It's just not how it works. So it's not that important.
That's right.
Figure out what's important to you and put your time into that.
I love it. I'm going to end on that quote. Ron, this is amazing. Let's talk about real quick. How do people get a hold of maybe you or get a copy of your book? Don't lose your balance, because in that book, it's amazing how much you've just unpacked, especially from the entrepreneurial journey, the balancing act that we all wrestle with, and how you've successfully navigated that, and how other people can do it. What's the best way for them to get you or the book?
So the book, they can pick up the book on Amazon. That's the best way. Just go to Amazon, type in Ron Bockstahler, type in Don't Lose My Balance. Contact me, Ron B at amataoffices.com. That's RONB at AMATA, offices is plural.com. Call me directly, 312-924-0204. I answer my own phone as long as I'm working. If not, I'll get back to you when I am working because I do schedule my time.
I love it. I love it. That's great. All right, I'm going to have those in the show notes. And Ron, thank you. Thanks for being my guest. It was just an amazing conversation around a topic that is just so very important for entrepreneurs, and for trusting us to be your publisher and for writing your book. Don't lose your balance. Um, it's great. It's always good to be with you, my friend.
Michael, same man. I can't thank you enough. You and your team are awesome and can't wait to get started on our next book.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Have a great day.
Thank you.